Hello, my name is Trisha Bundy, and I am here to share a little bit about my patient journey with gastroparesis. But before I share, I did want to thank IFFGD for all that they're doing to help raise awareness and increase research for gastroparesis and other GI disorders. I also want you to remember that this is my personal journey. Other people's experiences, reasons for gastroparesis, symptoms, treatments, outcomes will all vary depending on the person. So prior to becoming ill, I was a semi-normal person. I say semi-normal because I don't know that anybody is completely normal, but I was a scholar athlete in high school, went to college, married my husband as soon as I got out of college, started my dream career, which was teaching elementary students. And then, of course, I was an active teacher, but then became a very active mother as well as my children came along. However, in February of 2013, everything changed dramatically and unexpectedly. I went to bed that evening, just a couple days past my 35th birthday, after having a normal meal with my family and getting my kids ready for bed. I say normal meal because I haven't been able to have a normal meal since then, and it's been over 8.5 years now. I went to bed that evening, woke up around 1 o'clock in the morning, severely nauseated, cold sweats, vomiting, and didn't know what was going on. Severe, excruciating abdominal pain. This went on for a few days, and at first I thought, oh, okay, I've caught the bug that's going around at the school or that my kids might have been carrying. But as I didn't get better, I started seeking out help with my doctor. My family doctor at first thought, okay, well, maybe this is diverticulitis. Or then when the pain continued and severity increased after trying to eat, then, oh, well, it might be appendicitis. You might need to go to the ER. So I was going back and forth with him. And then later in the month, I found myself at the ER numerous times in my local ER getting fluids for my hydration because I was unable to urinate anymore, and got to the point where I eventually became impacted, which was awful in itself. But then you add the fact that the doctors and nurses, some of them were blaming me in a way, saying that, hey, it's my fault that I wasn't getting enough fluids in. There's a way I could have fixed that, not realizing or taking in to affect how hard I really was trying and just unable to keep anything at all down. So that's when my disbelief and search for medical care began. I kept seeing my doctor for a while, and then after a month of not getting anywhere with my local ER or local doctors, I started looking outside of my town. And I was driving 45 minutes one way to go see a GI in a nearby city where he ran numerous tests and labs, colonoscopy, endoscopy, having gone up literally all the way to the doctor's office to prepare for this test, which led to no answers again. Eventually, he threw up his hands, wasn't sure what to do, so he sent me to my gynecologist, who ran tests to see if it was anything maybe female. And once again, there were no answers, but he thought it was very kind to remind me of how losing weight was looking good on me. Of course, that's not what I wanted to hear when losing weight was the fact of not being able to keep anything down, and I was feeling absolutely awful day in and day out. I was also sent to a urologist who searched and did a cystoscopy looking for possible kidney stones. Of course, that came back negative as well. Then he was ready to send me to get a laparoscopic diagnostic laparoscopy, but that never came, as I ended up being hospitalized before we ever got to that point. As you might could guess, this left me feeling very lost, misunderstood, disbelieved. I was trying everything on my end, but no matter what I did, I just kept getting worse, getting nowhere, and kind of felt like I was being tossed around. I was struggling to keep up with my responsibilities as a mother, wife, and teacher. Finally, months later, after continuing and missing tons of work, not being able to participate in the life of my kids, missing out on their school events and their ball games, my family had had enough. I was trying to get ready. I was getting up earlier in the mornings because I knew I was going to have vomiting to deal with. So one morning, getting ready for work, after spending an hour or so vomiting after trying to drink a little something just to give me some nourishment to get through the day with my students, My husband said, "You're not going to work." Instead, he took me an hour and a half to a university hospital where my family met us there. And when I was there, they gave me fluids because I was definitely dehydrated. And then they were ready to discharge me, stating that, hey, it might be just stress. Well, we knew that that was not the case. I mean, I was stressed, of course. I couldn't keep anything down. I couldn't be a mother like I wanted. I couldn't be the teacher that I wanted. But that was not the cause of all this. However, my family urged him to rethink it. He had me try to eat a cracker and a little bit of juice, and I was unable to hold that down as well. So after going through the heaving and vomiting that resulted, he finally decided that he would admit me. That's when things started to turn around as far as finding some medical help to at least that I could depend on. I had an absolutely wonderful hospitalist. He spent the week with me trying to figure out what was going on, to find some kind of treatment. We tried multiple medications. One of them at the end of the week was one I had been warned of at the beginning of the week from him, which was Raglan. My body did not do well with that. But we went home and I spent a week trying to get by on just a liquid diet, which was literally sipping Gatorade throughout the day in small sips. However, at the end of the week, that was a no-go. I was not able to keep enough down. I was not going to the bathroom, and I had to be readmitted where they decided that a feeding tube would be the next step for me. The feeding tube gave me a chance to be able to vent my stomach and feed into my intestines. This was not an easy decision. I was very confused going into it because there was no one I knew that had feeding tubes and nothing online that I could find about it or about gastroparesis. It took a while, but we finally figured out that my rate would be around 35 to 45. And here, over 8 years later, I'm still in that range and multiple tries with different formulas. My GI care since then has been with that same system, even though my GI had changed. I have an excellent one now that I definitely depend and trust. Some of the medical tests that I've been through, you can see would be listed here. A lot of the common ones that you're probably familiar with. The strangest one was probably the defecography. If you know anything about digestive illnesses and about the diagnostic test for them, they are not fun. They seem to increase your symptoms and make you feel a lot worse, at least short term, while trying to figure out, hey, what could be the cause or treatment. As you can see, I couldn't handle a few ounces of liquid, and in that top picture, I had to get down that whole bottle. In the bottom right picture, you can see that was when I got down to my lowest weight, was on a feeding tube then, as well as getting IV hydration at home. But my weight kept plummeting because I could not get any nutrition in. Medical surgeries. In 2013, I had a GJ feeding tube placed. I still use that and depend on that for nutrition. Back and forth for pelvic sessions multiple times a week, all with for a few months, all within about an hour and a half drive. Dilations for my esophagus that did not want to relax. Had gallbladder removal due to the amount of weight loss and the speed, how fast it occurred, and not in a healthy fashion. 2016, had my colon removed and an ileostomy placed. One of the toughest decisions I've made, but definitely one I do not regret. Picks and ports were tried for hydration. But if you know anything about picks and ports, you carry the risk of infections. And some reason or another, my body seemed to continue to get infections over those 4 years. So now I get peripherals when needed for outpatient fluids. Iron infusions for being anemic now, iron deficient anemic, and hospital visits and inpatient stays became normal for me for the first numerous years. In fact, this past year was the first year I made it without an actual hospitalization. Most of the symptoms I've already discussed. One that I didn't mention was I have a lot of like the muscle pain, probably from the lack of nutrition that I need, the bloating, the mental fog is very bad. And you can see some of my diagnoses, one being that the gastroparesis is idiopathic, meaning we don't know a cause for it, but it is possible there could have been a post-viral part to it. And then you can see in the pictures, the heating pad, which is about the only thing that works for regular pain relief, how it is sitting at tables while everybody else is eating, and holidays are very similar, and the difference of the food. Nausea treatment. There, you can see nausea medicines as well as other medicines are a lot of trial and error. And a lot of these might have worked for a little while. Some did not work at all. There were a couple that actually made me feel worse, but that doesn't mean that it won't work for others. A lot of times what works for one person does not work the same for another person. And I also listed a few over-the-counter type things. The most interesting one that actually does help for me is the smell and alcohol pads when I get to the point of heaving. That kind of helps calm it down. I don't know why. And then last, the self-awareness and acceptance. Mental health can definitely be impacted when you are living with a chronic illness. It's not something that is expected, but when your life is flipped upside down and you have to give up a lot of things that you were doing, when you have to resign from a career that you loved, you miss out on things with your family, they go on vacations without you, it starts to wear you down, not to mention the looks and thoughts that you receive from other people and doctors. But coming to the realization that, hey, it's okay if I'm not can't do what I used to do. I have to be able to accept my limitations, whether that means my feeding tube, enjoying small different activities with my family, even riding a scooter to be able to participate. That's okay. And then giving myself the grace when I can't, and then continuing to keep my faith and trust in God that I will survive the bad days just like I have already, that eventually there will be better days ahead. Thank you.